So may we call Architect Robert Sack, the Honorable Chairman of PRC Board of Architecture, if he is already around? Sir Robert?
Yeah. Yep.
Hi, sir.
Ito na.
Tanghali na po. So good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Naririnig niya?
Yes, very clear po.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
First time
Sir,
ko dito sa StreamYard.
yes. Oo nga eh. All of us are very new to this technology and we are all experiencing some glitches. But anyway, we shall proceed. No, we invited Architect Sack to give us updates on what's happening in PRC Board of Architecture. He is together with member Architect Robert Emirafuente. And they are very busy, no, because they are the only two architects there because vacant pa po ang isang member. So busy po sila na naggagawa ng mga policies, no, regarding affairs about our practice, no. So allow me to welcome Architect Robert Sack. And Sir Robert, you have the floor already. You may give us already your updates. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you too, Ed, Joey. Magandang umaga sa lahat ng participants and mga listeners natin for this conference. The assigned topic for me is to update you about developments related to our profession in PRC. Nabanggit na kanina ni Architect Joey na aware naman na kayo na postpone yung June 2020 exam under our resolution number 3 series of 2020. And of course, the new schedule is October 30 and November 1. At first, medyo parang controversial sa amin yung November 1 na date. And so we tried to ask kung may ibang available na days. Unfortunately, because there are other board examinations that had to be rescheduled also, lumalabas na ito lang yung available slot for us. And so we have to take this schedule, even if we are aware that November 1 is a legal holiday. Ang paliwanag naman sa amin ng PRC, coming from the licensure office, hindi naman daw bago yung ganito, dahil they have been conducting examinations on holidays, especially Sundays, and even in the past, they have already conducted examination on November 1. So that we accepted yung reasons ng licensure office, and so we agreed and accepted the October 30 and November 1 schedule of examination for this year. At first, alam namin na may mga nagtatanong and we're wondering kung bakit hindi na isabay ang cancellation or postponement of the licensure examination for architects on the first batch of canceled and postponed examination. In fact, in private, I informed Ed Joey about it. Why? And in private also I informed NP Benz, and in private some deans of different colleges. Ang dahilan kung bakit hindi tayo kasabay, dahil the other professions that canceled the examination then, they all still have a scheduled examination this year. Kaya sabi ng PRC, madali yan because pwede nang kumuha ng exam yung hindi makakakuha itong mga postponed na examination, still this year, dahil meron pa naman silang examination. In the case of the Board of Architecture Profession, wala. Yan na yung huli. And that is the last examination for the for the year 2020. Kaya sabi nila, let's treat architecture in a different way. And so we have to take time to decide on this, whether at what month we can move the examination, but still it had to be this year, so that we find it fair for those that prepared for the June exam. They still have the chance to take the board examination within the year. And anyway, there's no intention, at least for now, not to also push through and proceed with the examination comes January. There was also some misunderstanding that the board, or for some, misunderstood that probably the board is not ready to conduct the exam. It's not. The board is ready to conduct examination as early as January, because the requirement is that our test questions and design problems are submitted as early as the first week of January. So, nandyan na yon, nasa data bank na ng PRC. Ang tinitignan lang talaga kung may kakayanan ay yung licensure office of PRC, because sila yung nasa ground, nasa field. Kami, nasa opisina lang naman. And so, it was the licensure office at the beginning, ang sabi nila, kaya nilang mag-conduct ng exam ng June. So when they said that they can conduct the exam June, of course, the board cannot say we cannot, because we have always been ready as early as January. But then, nung na-extend yung quarantine period, and so that's the time the licensure office of PRC already sent a letter to the commission, to the Board of Architecture, na hindi na nila kaya to prepare, to be ready to conduct the examination the month of June. And that's why, finally, it was moved to another day or another schedule. So that's the story behind the suppose some others claim delayed announcement, but actually in reality, it was just on time, and it was just proper that we take time in postponing it, because there is an important requirement from us in the board, and that is for us to be able to have an examination of architects for the profession of architecture this year. Now, the related issuances on this examination, parehas din yung dati, no? Kagaya ng nakasanayan ng lahat. Ang naidagdag lang ay meron ng tinatawag na precautionary measures and protocols that shall be observed and implemented during the conduct of the licensure examination. Ito yung siguro dapat ma-download sa website ng PRC, and for those schools and architects in the Academe to help disseminate the information dito sa protocol na ito, and it has something to do to the precautionary measures and protocol. Okay. Lumalabas meron 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 na guidelines and protocol related to precautionary measures on the spread of COVID-19. So, pag-aralan maigi. But basically, it's about distancing. Basically, it's about wearing masks. Basically, it's about safety practices, health practices like kailangan maghugas na maigi, kailangan may dalang mga alcohol and so forth and so on. I think we can go back to that in the event we still have time to talk about it. But I suggest that you just have to download these additional guidelines and protocol related to safety measures, precautionary measures against COVID-19. Ang tingin ko na importante rin siguro na ma-update kayo, for example, is, of course, what happens to those who passed noong June 2020. Hindi pa nakapag-oath. And so, having not able to take their oath, dahil inabutan yung schedule, supposed to be with March 28 as oath-taking, but because of the declarations of the pandemic and related quarantine, na-cancel itong oath-taking. Ang tanong is, meron pa bang scheduled mass oath-taking? Ang tingin namin, meron. Pero it will be under already a different guideline. Because there is an existing guideline on the conduct of mass oath-taking and also guideline for spatial oath-taking. Meron yan sa PRC and we are guided by that. And the PRC has created already the committee to prepare the new guideline, alternative way to conduct oath-taking. So we are just waiting for the output of this committee on the ways that we can do to conduct oath-taking. There were requests, for example, that we conduct spatial oath-taking. But the stumbling block to conduct spatial oath-taking is that the guideline in PRC prescribe that spatial oath-taking can be undertaken after the mass oath-taking. So, since we cannot conduct mass oath-taking, it follows that we cannot also conduct spatial oath-taking. And that's the one that have to be untangled by the committee. Because meron guideline na hindi kami makapag-conduct ng spatial oath-taking until and unless the mass oath-taking is done. So, let's just keep in touch. Watch for announcement sa PRC website. There is already a committee studying and preparing other modes on how we can go about the oath-takings of passers of the June 2020 examination. Okay, the other item that this is very new. It's, in fact, I just received the resolution last night because I've not seen this yet. Yesterday, before I left the office, and so that resolution number 1242, series of 2020. This resolution is already canceling the 2020 Special Professional Licensure Examination, or SPLE, for overseas Filipino workers in various countries of the Middle East and Singapore. So wala ng SPLE itong taon na ito. The countries that we should have conducted the SPLE for architecture, aside from Singapore, because Singapore is mentioned in the heading, is Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, Al Almad, Kuwait, Al-Kubar, Saudi Arabia, Doha, Qatar, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Manama, Bahrain, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So those are the countries that we are supposed to conduct the SPLE. So the resolution number 1242, which is just recently released under series of 2020, is already canceling this scheduled SPLE. Now, the other items that we would like you to be updated with is, of course, the Professional Regulation Commission Resolution 1239. This is about the CPD. This is granting continuing professional development credit units to all professionals providing essential services during the state of public health emergency due to the coronavirus disease of 2019. So it is basically a way of PRC recognizing professionals in their service during the public health emergency. There is another CPD resolution issued by the Commission, which is the PRC Resolution 1240. Resolution 1240 states that this is about reiterating ways of learning that can earn continuing professional development CPD credit units, particularly during the state of public health emergency due to COVID-19 crisis, and extending the acceptance of undertaking for the renewal of the professional identification card until December 31, 2021. But before this, there had already been a resolution issued by the Commission automatically extending the PICs that expired during the period where there is a quarantine. And it means that if your PIC would have expired up to end of this month, it follows that it had been automatically extended. So yung mga nag-practice ng kanilang professions, expired na yung PIC nila, yet they were practicing up to end of May, still, ang ibig sabihin, valid yung PIC nila because automatic yon na na-extend na. But this resolution, it goes beyond that. It also states that up to December 31, 2021, and that is next year, pwede pa rin magbigay ng undertaking, affidavit of undertaking sa mga professionals that are not able to comply with the requirements of 15 CPD credit units. So that's another 1 year na extension. Aside from, of course, this resolution mentions about several ways of earning CPD during the pandemic period. So yan yung resolution 1239 and then 1240, all about CPD. Now, of course, there are still operational guidelines required to implement 1239, Resolution 1239, and Resolution number 1240. This one, I already received this week during the weekday, the proposed operational guidelines for these two resolutions prepared by the CPD Council for Architecture. And yesterday, I gave the go signal for submission to the commission, yung operational guideline. I already informed the chairman of the CPD Council, Architect Robert Mirafuente, that the OG for these two resolutions, resolutions 1239 and 1240, okay na sa akin. And so it was already transmitted yesterday actually to the commission, itong OG ng resolution 1239 and 1240. So let's just wait for the approval of the commission, and once this is approved, the appropriate resolution will be sent out for implementation by the CPD Council. Okay. Another update, uh, and this is something interesting and new also, is that the PRC has issued resolution number 1226, series of 2020. And this is the creation of a task force for computer-based licensure examination. The PRC is in the stage of exploring the possibility of conducting examinations on a computer-based licensure exam. So the task force had already been created. The chairperson of the task force is Commissioner White Cueto Jr. And the co-chairperson of the task force is no other than our very own, of course, Commissioner Yolanda Reyes. So I started also thinking about this since 2 days ago. And I believe that the Academe, the architects in Academe, should be involved on this one. It is my strong feeling and believe that to come up with our position in our profession, the architects in the Academe should be involved, because this is something different, something new, and for PRC to consider conducting computer-based licensure examination. So, if I may request the Education Commission to organize itself to be able to submit recommendations to the board relative to the direction of the PRC to conduct examination computer-based. So, kailangan namin ang inputs ng mga architects in Academe, and it would be a good idea that this is to be headed by the UAP Commission on Education. Of course, there is another one that we know this is also being discussed at the PRC. I made mention about this when we had a meeting among the ASEAN architects. And this is about House Bill 6662 and other almost equally the same bills filed in the Senate as well as in the House of Representatives. The House Bill 6662 pertains to the repeal of the CPD law. The initial evaluation of the Board of Architecture, not the Commission or the PRC as a whole, is that the repeal of the CPD law has a better chance to be passed in this House of Representatives. Now, because the people, the congressman sponsoring this bill are all the top leaders of the House of Representatives. Okay? Uh, as far as the Board of Architecture is concerned, our position that we adopted is that to us, it actually does not matter much if the CPD law is repealed. In fact, we said, and I said this to the commission. By the way, the commission has also created, although the resolution is coming in very soon, has already created a committee or task force to take care the submission of position papers with regard to this repeal bill of the CPD. The position of this board, as I said, our initial position, is for us to live up to what is provided for in our law. Uh, the CPD law, the current CPD law. When I became member and chairman, for that matter, of the Board of Architecture, the CPD bill was already on its last reading. And then I was already saying there's nothing that we can do to stop the approval or the passage of these bills in both houses uh, because there is not much that can be done. And true to my prediction, the bill was passed. And it became the law because it lapsed the prescriptive period for the president to veto. Uh, it has been my position personally as chairman of the Board of Architecture uh, that, of course, our position is to live up to what is provided for in our law. Well, when the CPD law came about, there's nothing we can do because it is our also obligation as members of the board to comply with the new law, and that is the CPD law. There are, of course, some members of us who are saying our law is supreme over the CPD law when it comes to the CPD. Our position in the board, whether they like it or not, the position of the board is that no, the CPD law prevails our law when we talk about CPD. And that's why we have to have the CPD law implemented among the architects and architecture profession. But now that there is a proposed repeal, we say that it does not actually matter to the board because as far as this board is concerned, it is our position to be in line with what is provided for in our law. And that in our law, it is very clear that CPD is required for the efficient practice of our profession. And however, it should have not been a prerequisite to the renewal of the PIC. That's very clear in our law. And that is where, as architects of the board, that is where we are standing at this point in time. But I have to give caution to our fellow architects. While we are standing on this or aligning our position on our PRL, it is only our law, architectural law, that clearly stipulates that the CPD should not be a prerequisite renewal of PIC. There are several PRLs that require CPD, and yet silent on as a prerequisite to renewal of the PIC. But there are several PRLs that requires the CPD as a prerequisite to the renewal of PIC. Now, of course, in the past, in fact, not in the past, in the very recent initial talk that we have about this repeal bill, uh, of course, the Board of Architecture is a lone voice when it comes to the idea that this should not be a prerequisite to renewal of PIC. Nag-iisa tayo na profession na naninindigan at nagsasabi na hindi dapat ito prerequisite to the renewal of PIC. The position that we have already advanced is that CPD should be an incentive in the practice of our profession, but it should not act as a penalty to the practice of our profession. So that have been our position. But given, fortunately, I would say, I happen to be a member of the task force or committee that now prepare a position paper for the PRC as a whole. And I just don't know to what extent our position will be heard by all other professional regulatory boards. Please understand that there are 43, I think by now it's 46 professional regulatory board, and only architecture, the law of architecture specifically states that CPD is not a prerequisite in the renewal of PLC. I think, again, I invited, because the first time I talk about this is with the ASEAN architects. I invited the ASEAN architects to send to us their ideas and thoughts about this repeal of CPD law. I will also do the same. I will ask the architects in the Academe if you may wish to submit your own thoughts about the repeal of the CPD. Now, the architecture profession, in the event that this CPD law is repealed, I believe that we are in a better situation because we already have all the necessary tools on how we can conduct CPD as a way to, as an incentive to the practice of our profession. We have already guidelines, OGs. We have also the CPS already. And so we can use these documents that we have already made, especially the outputs of the CPD Council for Architecture, as an incentive. For example, we can use them for the programs on the career progression and specialization. So I don't see that there could be a setback for the architecture profession in the event the CPD law is repealed. But let me just emphasize, our position is the lone voice so far. Tayo lang sa architecture ang nagsasabi na dapat hindi prerequisite ang CPD sa renewal ng PIC. Now, I think that should end my dialogue or talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are so much enlightened about what you have explained. Sir, just probably two questions. No? The first one is about the extension of the validity of the PRC ID or license, no, the ID. Is the extension, you mentioned about May, the end of May, since we are under ECQ. How about, sir, that we are entering the GCQ, June, probably the month of June, is it still extended? Kasi ang alam kong in-extend until December po ay ang yung undertaking for the CPD points, no?
Yeah.
But how about the license itself? Up until when will it be extended po?
I think if I recall right, but I can we can check this all together. Ang ma ang keywords to that is until the quarantine period have been lifted, you should be able to renew your PICs 30 days after the quarantine period has been lifted. So if under GCQ, that's still under quarantine. It's
Quarantine
called,
pa din.
yes, it's still general community quarantine. And therefore, I would say that that's still within the period of automatic extension.
I see.
So I just mentioned May because there have been already places in our country that had been declared low risk. Although there was an amendment on the announcement that even if you are low risk, you are under a modified general community quarantine. So the word is still there. Quarantine
Mm.
word is still there. In
Yeah.
fact, we are already talking about this in the board and among the commission, in the commission, to probably further define what really would this be. Because when that resolution was passed, wala naman yung tumatalon-talon. We were
Yes.
all under general community quarantine. And then nagkaroon ng enhanced community quarantine. And then nagkaroon ngayon ng modified. So that the resolution automatically extending the PIC during, I would say, it's really during the pandemic period. And in my mind, at least coming from the chairman of the board, I don't know the positions of the other. Pandemic period means up to the time all the quarantine pronounced or declarations are lifted.
Okay, sir. Thank you for that clarification, sir. So, for those who are asking po, if your PIC will be expired by May, June, July, for as long as we are not back to normal business and there is still a quarantine in place, then there is most likely the extension of the card is still in effect, as how Architect Zach explained it. And for those who failed to listen carefully to the explanation of Architect Zach, he mentioned, no, several times that PRC Board of Architecture is the board, the lone board that actually goes for the stand of on the CPD law is it should not be a penalty for anyone renewing their license, but instead it should become an incentive, no? So that is very much noteworthy to take because for all of the other professions, ang stand nila talaga is a requirement. But for architecture, it has been clearly stressed by Chairman Sack that their stand is the CPD points to be used for renewal is it should not be used for penalty as a penalty, but instead for to be used as incentive. So thank you, sir, for that explanation because I really thought all of the boards have a unified stand on the renewal and it should be required. No? So it is something. It is one of the good news that we have um, learned today. So, sir, there are other questions, but it is best, no, in the interest of time, we could probably just email it to you so that you could be able to answer it in your at your convenience, no. But basically, the updates that you have given us are very clear, and some of the questions that we have taken note of have been answered already, even if we have not asked the questions yet regarding a possibility of online exam, etc. nasagot nyo na po. So hindi na po namin tatanungin. For other questions, we will be able to probably send it to you and maybe communicate to those who were asking about it and email them your response na lang po later, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much po.
Can I just make an important emphasis?
Yes po.
Ang bakit ganon ang position ng board pagdating sa CPD? This one is not new, or this is should not come in as a surprise as far as the Board of Architecture is concerned, especially coming from me. Because our law, our A9266, basically come into fruition. It was signed, it was worked out in Congress, both in the House of Representatives and in Senate, during the time of my 2-year presidency. And we fought for it. In fact, the commission then were a bit really hesitant because we were, again, the only profession insisting that under our law, it should not be a requirement to renew PIC. And we were united, we were together in that position when I was the president then. And it's just right for me to just go back. I heard so many positions then, why it must not be, or why it has to be. And we adopted as a united profession that our position would be not to let CPD, participation of architects to CPD, should not be a prerequisite renewal of the PIC. And that's the very reason why we are standing on that position.
So again, sir, thank you very much. Naistorbo po namin ang pananghalian nyo. So,
Okay.
I owe you one again, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye po.